We've brought together a whole series of academic experts, researchers, people from the telecoms industry, from ISPs, from the media, to discuss this whole idea that the internet and the idea of net neutrality is at a crossroads. Increasingly, commercial pressures mean that the internet is not the same for everybody, and that might undermine the whole idea that the internet is this free space for play and business.
There is a need to a coordinated approach, and we have discussed that with our colleagues of Ofcom. We think internet is fundamental. This is very important for European competitiveness, for social inclusion, for development of all sorts of e-public services. So should be seen as a very important public good, and that's why this kind of debate is important.
It turns out that what people really have in mind is almost the creation of a two-tier internet space, where one tier might be a relatively lightly regulated tier to provide managed services. But alongside that, providers would have to offer a best efforts internet as it exists today.
The internet has reached a point where it is considered by most of us to be effectively an essential service. People think of it like a utility. I guess one of the critical things going forward will be when government fulfills its ambition to put public services online, fundamentally for cost-cutting purposes, actually the benefit of that really has to be available to all of us and not just to a few.
It's going to be interesting in 10 years' time, looking back, to ask if we are at a fork in the road, if the qualities of the internet as it emerged, if that essential openness was a thing only of the first phase of the internet.
The core of the debate is, should you force the people who create the platforms for the internet, that create the services on it, should you regulate to make sure that they allow everybody equal access to the internet and what it can provide? Or should you allow people to have different pricing structures and to have different accessibility to the internet?
If we allow mobile operators to, because it's mainly done, to continue their practices, we're going to stop a lot of innovation and a lot of good.
The open internet for us is the basis of all the innovation we've had over the past 20 years. The problem is that across the European Union, for instance, and in the UK, for a start, there's a number of mobile operators in particular that operate quite wide-ranging and arbitrary restrictions on what users of the internet can do with their mobile access to the internet. And that already affects Skype.
You've got the cyber libertarians, if you like, calling for regulation, calling for new rules to prevent network operators managing the traffic on their network. Some people think that you can solve the problem simply by obliging network operators to be more transparent about what they're doing, whether they slow down some services and speed up others. But there are still a number of people who say that we need new laws, particularly to prevent people who run networks discriminating against people who are deploying certain kinds of services like peer-to-peer, or maybe people that haven't contracted with them for better quality of service.
Debates about internet always stir emotions, and there are very strong points of view and sometimes opposite, and these are also very technical issues, so it's quite complex.
The internet has been in a very early phase of development, and there's an extent to which, using a kind of business modelling, that actually we've reached a level of maturity in the internet market which requires us to think a bit differently about what we want from it in the future.
Thank you all for your contributions. Thank you.